We begin today the Gemara on Daf Ches Amud Beis, towards the bottom of the Amud, about 10-15 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, where it says Taner Rabbanon Gabait Stokke. The first word on the line is V'oyavav. Taner Rabbanon, we learned in the Braise, Gabait Stokke. The Gabait takes care of Stokke. Einon Rashoy Lifresh Zemizeh. So the two Gabayin, it mentioned before, you should have two people that should be collecting the funds for tzedakah, because at any time there's an authority placed over a tzibur, it should be two. So these two should not separate from one another, because then it may seem like that one's alone and he could be suspected for wanting to take some of the money for himself. Aval, Pirish, Zel Shar, Zel Chanus. They may separate, one will go towards the gate, one will go by the store, as long as they can see one another, they're not too far from each other, so then they can go in different directions. Another thing, in order to not, this is all that the Gabait Stokke should not be suspected, that he's taking money for himself. Matzah Mois B'Shok, if this Gabait Stokke finds money in the street, Lo Yitnim B'Toich Kisei, so he shouldn't put it into his own pocket. Because then people see this Gabait Stokke in the street putting money in his own pocket, they think that he's just pocketing the money of Stokke. Take that money that you found and put it into the wallet of Tzedakah. Or then when you get home, then you can take it for yourself. Another thing similar, you're collecting from your friend money that he owes you, and your friend pays you in the marketplace. Don't take the money and put it into your pocket. Put the money into the wallet at Stokke. You get home, then you take the money for yourself. Taner Rabbanon, also another thing, because it shouldn't be suspected that you're taking for yourself. So we learned in the Braise, Gabait Tzedakah, She'elem Aniyim L'chalik. A Gabait Tzedakah, he doesn't find poor people to distribute the money to them, so he has these copper coins that he would have to distribute, but he doesn't find them. So he doesn't want to keep these copper coins because they rust, they don't keep well. So he wants to exchange the copper coins for silver coins. So he should exchange the copper coins for silver coins from other people. He shouldn't exchange it with his own silver coins, because then people could suspect him that he's doing the exchange on a cheaper rate and he's taking for himself. Gabay tanchoy, a gabay of the food platter for the poor people. So he has extra food and he doesn't have food to distribute to, so now he has to sell it. He said to put aside money that he could get for this. They sell to others. He shouldn't sell to himself, so it shouldn't look like that he's really taking the money for himself. A person has money for tzedakah. Don't count the money two at a time, $2 or 2 coins at a time. You count one at a time. It shouldn't look like you're counting two and it's really one and you're just taking double for yourself. Abaye said about his teacher Rabba, in the beginning, Rabba, his teacher, did not want to sit on the mats that they had to sit on in the shul, because he knew that they would make these mats from tzedakah funds, and he held that you can't take tzedakah funds and use it for such a kind of thing. To use it for things that people need in the shul, to sit on it, should be given to the poor people. But then, Kivin the Shama Lahad Tanya, when he heard what it was taught in the Braise, and it's the Braise that was quoted here before in the Amud, that if the money is not needed for poor people, you can exchange and use the money for anything else that's necessary for the city. So then Abba Yosef, he said, so it could be used to make the mat, so he sat on it. Another thing, Abaye said that Mereish, in the beginning, have a Ovid Mar Trei Kisi. So Rabbe, so he had two different wallets for two different what? Two different purses for the funds of Stokke. There's a fund for Chad Laniya Dalma. One was a fund for poor people that come from anywhere in the world, and the Chad Laniya Damasa. And another purse was for the poor people of this city. So he separated the funds. But Kiv and the Shamal Shmuel Rav Tachlife Barav Dimi. Then he heard what Shmuel said to Rav Tachlife Barav Dimi, that Ovid Chad Kise, that you can have just one purse. V'asni Allah. And you make a condition with people that are giving you money for tzedakah, that I'm going to distribute it to whoever I see fit. So you can just have one purse. So Yinami Yavet Chad Kise. So Rabba also just had one purse that included in it all the different funds that were distributed for the people of this city or people from other places. And V'asni Allah. And he made that condition that people should know that he's going to give whoever he sees fit. Now Ravashi went a step further. He said, it's not necessary for me to make any condition with the people that give me money for tzedakah. whoever comes and donates money to me for tzedakah, adaita didi asi. They're giving it to me that I should do with it as I see fit. They're relying on me. Rav Ashi was a great person, and they're relying on Rav Ashi. They knew Rav Ashi is going to give it to whoever is supposed to give it, so they're relying on Rav Ashi. And whoever I want, I give the money of tzedakah for them. Yehivnale, that is. Here the Gemara brings another story. This is related to one of the halachas that were mentioned in this Braise that the Gemara is referencing in. So we had before a Braise that people in a city are allowed to establish certain rules between them. And one of the things was they're even allowed to create a certain penalty between them, a knas, that if they don't behave in a certain way, they're going to make a knas even beyond what it says in the Torah. So here the Gemara brings a story in connection to this halacha of the Braise. So Hanitrei Tapchi, or Hanibet, or the Bach here is great, is Hana Tapchi. There were these two butchers, the Avdi Inyana Bahadi Adadi. They made the following condition between them. Okay, so there was a competition between them. So what was the condition they made? Whoever is going to shecht and sell the meat on the day of his friend. So they basically split the days of the week. I sell one day, you sell the other day. And the deal then was, the condition was, if one is going to go and sell on the day of his friend, we're going to take the hide of the animal that he has and destroy it, rip it. That's going to be his penalty. Now, I'll be tidy, you're not allowed to do such a thing. You're stealing, you're ripping another person's hide. But in this city, this is the kind of penalty that they decided to make. So what happened? So one went and went on the day of his friend to sell meat. So they went and they tore the hide of the animal as the penalty that they made up. Also they came to Rava, Rava was the Rava in that city. The Rava says, you pay him for the damage that you caused, that you ripped his hide. So Rava says you have to pay. So Rav Yemi asks Rava, why are you saying this? We learned in the Braise before, Ulahasiya al Kitzasam. They're allowed to go to great lengths for any penalty that they impose upon people of the city, even if al pitayra this is not allowed. But if they accept upon themselves this penalty, it's allowed. So this is what they accepted upon themselves. So why should they be responsible to paying for the loss? Loi ahadale Rava. Rava didn't bother responding to what he was asked about this. Rav Papa said, Shapir ove the loy ahadale midi. Rava was right for not even bothering to answer this question. Why? Because if the people of the city make up this thing between them, and there's no prominent individual in the city, there's no Rav that they are consulting, because there is no Rav here. So then, what they make up between themselves stands. But if there's a prominent individual in the city, like in this case, Rava, he was the Rav in the city, they can't come and make such a kind of harsh condition to go and destroy another person's assets, another person's hide of his animal without consulting Rava about this condition they made. Tan Rabbanan and a Braise we learned. Ein mechashvim b'tzedakah im gaboy tzedakah. A gaboy tzedakah, he has the funds of tzedakah and he distributes it. He does not have to give us account of exactly what he did with the money of tzedakah. We trust him that he's distributing it properly. And v'loy behektish and magizbarim. Similar to Gizbar, which is the Gabay of Hektish, also does not have to give account exactly of what's going on with all the things of Hektish. Even if we don't have a clear proof for this as a source, but we have somewhat like a source for in a pasuk. Shenema, as the pasuk says, and this is actually talking about Hektish in the time of the first Beis Hamikdash, when they were doing a lot of work, and there was a gizbar that was managing and taking care of all the building materials of the Beis Hamikdash. We don't have to take account from those people that are managing from all the building materials, the silver and so on, that's being given to the workers, because we trust them. They're doing their work with trust. So Rashi says it's not a clear raya because that case could be different, because there was so much going on. There's so many workers and so much building material, so there it's very difficult to give a proper account of what's happening. So maybe there we just relied on them. But maybe by a Gabbai Tzedakah, it would be necessary to give account. But nevertheless, the Gemara says, just like there we see that we didn't demand a cheshbon, similar by a Gabbai Tzedakah, we don't demand a cheshbon. Amar Rabbi Lazar said, Afal pisha yesh le'adam gizbar neman b'toich beisai. Even though, as we said, that you have a gizbar, that we trust him, but nevertheless, again, but nevertheless, what you should do is, when you give money to tzedakah, You should count the money and then tie the money and give it to tzedakah. You should know, you make an account of how much money it is that you gave to tzedakah. Shanev, as the pasuk says, vayitzuru vayimnu, that they tied the money together and they counted this money. And there it's talking about the donation to the Beis Hamikdash, the hektish. And so you see there that they counted the money. So even though we just said that the gizbar, the gabbai, does not have to give an account of what he's doing with the money and who he's distributing it to, but when you give, you should have an account of what you gave. Some say that this is in order that in case he wants to be able to give an account later, you should have the ability to see if you have the account, you know how much you gave. That it's just if you see if it stims or not. Rav Hona said, "Bait kilim mezainis." We have to go and inspect a person that's poor to see if he is deserving to give him food. Maybe he doesn't need. But it's a poor person that needs clothing. For that, we don't have to go and inspect the matter. We just give him the clothing that he needs. Why is this? What's the difference? Either I could say we learn this from a pasuk, or even without a pasuk, it's something that's logical. And the Gemara starts with the svara. It's something which is logical because the person that's not dressed properly, it's very embarrassing for him. So we have to immediately help him to remove his embarrassment. But the one that's hungry, he may be hungry, but it's not embarrassing. So we could just take the time to investigate whether he needs food or not. Or we can say we learned it from a pasuk. So here the Gemara is darshaning that price, it's written with a sin. And we read it b'shin ksiv or b'sin ksiv. And the way we read it is price. First, explain the matter, meaning investigate the matter to see if he needs bread, and v'hada havle. And then, so you read it halei parish. First, investigate the matter, find out what's the facts, and then lachmecha. Then you give him bread. That's regarding giving food. But for Hasam Ksiv, what the pasuk there continues and says, Kisira Aram. You see a person that's not dressed, vikisisai. You should dress him. That means Kisira Lalta. As soon as you see that he's not dressed properly, you should immediately dress him. But Rav Yehuda argues and says, no, actually the opposite is true. Baitkin Liksos. When there's a person that needs clothing, there you have to investigate whether he's deserving, whether he needs his clothing or not. But when it comes to food, over here you don't investigate whether he needs food or not. If he's asking for money for food, you should give him right away. And he says also, svara, or this is something which is logical, and or it's learned from a pasuk. Either it's logical because the one that's hungry, he's in pain from his hunger. And the one that's not dressed properly, so it's embarrassing for him, but it's not a pain. So according to Rav Yehuda, the pain is something that's more important than the embarrassment. So therefore you should give him right away food. Or we could say that it's based on the pasuk, and here he brings the same pasuk, but he darshans it differently. Because the pasuk says, "Halei prois l'rov lachmecha," and the prois it's written with a samach. So if you read it with a samach, prois means cut a piece of bread for the poor person. What that means is prois lal, to cut him a piece of bread right away. Don't ask any questions. Okay, the karina. It's the way it's read. There's a discussion in Mefarshim over here. Which one is the kri and which one is the ksiv? Is it with a samach or with a sin? Because as we have it in Nach, it's actually the ksiv is with a samach. Either way, here the Gemara says that the samach is the kri. That's the way you read it. Okay, so that's regarding food. You have to give him right away. For hasam ksiv, then the pasuk says there regarding clothing, kisira arayim vikisisa. You see someone that's not dressed properly, so you should cover him. So nahidashins that kishiyira lacha. As soon as you observe that he's not dressed properly, you should right away cover him. Tanya Kava say that Rav Yehuda, we learned in the Brayso like Rav Yehuda's opinion that it's more important to feed a person right away. Omar Kasuni, a poor person says, give me for clothing to cover me. Bait genachrav. We first investigate the matter to see if he doesn't have any money of his own. Parnasuni, if a person asks for parnasa, meaning he needs food, aim baitkin. We don't investigate the matter, we give him money immediately for food. Tanan Asam, we learned there in a Mishnah in Masechta Peah. We don't give for a poor person going from city to city or from place to place. We don't give him less than mikikar bepudyan, than a bread that's the value of pundyan. Me'arba sa'im besela. In the time when the value of 4 saw of wheat goes for a selah. So what's the cheshbon over here? So Rashi says it comes out that you're going to be giving him enough bread to be able to have for 2 meals a day, for the morning and the evening. That's the cheshbon that comes out. And the cheshbon here is because every punyain is 48 punyain to a selah. And every saw has in it 6 kav. So what that means is that 4 saw is going to be 24 kav. Now, so if you're going to give him 1 punyan, so that's going to be a half a kav of wheat that you're going to give him. And now that half a kav of wheat, Rashi says he's not going to. You still have to deduct from it another half, because then there's what the baker and the one that sells that you have to take off half. He's going to end up with a quarter of a kav of wheat, and that's going to be enough for him to bake for himself bread for the morning and the night. So basically, you have to give him enough for 2 meals. Okay, now, if he's sleeping over in the city, you also have to give him what he needs in order to be able to sleep. What is that? My parnasaslina. Give him a bed and a pillow. Shavas, if he's staying over for a Shabbos, so it's not enough to give him 2 meals. So for Shabbos, you have to give him, as the mitzvah is, to eat 3 meals, so you have to give him enough for 3 meals. Now, Tane and a Braisa we learned, when you see a poor individual, that he himself goes and knocks on doors, and he's collecting money for himself. So then we don't have to give him from the fund of tzedakah that the city has, that the people already collected, because he can take care of himself. He's collecting money for himself. But the Gemara now here says that this doesn't exactly mean 100% this way, because there was a poor individual. He went around himself collecting money by the doors of the houses. So now he came to Rav Papa that had the fund of tzedakah for the city. So Rav Papa did not attend to him, because, like we just said, he's taking care of himself. He's collecting his own money. So Rav Sama Breder Rav Yevi says to Rav Papa, how are you doing this? If the master will not attend to him, so no one else is going to want to give him any money for tzedakah, so then you're going to allow him to die. But the Gemara asks, why was he asking him this question? But we just learned in a Braisa, if he's a poor individual that knocks on doors himself, and so we don't have to give him from the fund of tzedakah. So Rav Samis, so he says to Rav Papa, when it says in the Braisa that if he's knocking on doors himself, we don't have to give him from the fund, that means you don't have to give him a lot, you don't have to give him extra. But but something you have to give him. You always have to give him something, because if you're not going to give him something from the fund of tzedakah, like in this case, if Rav Papa is not going to give him anything, people are going to think, you know why Rav Papa didn't give him anything? Because he doesn't deserve. Because he's not really poor. He has for himself. So then even when he's going to try to collect money in his own, no one's going to want to give him anything. It's not clear here 100% in the Gemara what's exactly matana merubah, matana muetes. From Rashi, it's mashma matana merubah means that you have to give him matana merubah is more than what he needs for the meals that we mentioned before. Matana muetes is just to give him the basic amount that he needs for the meals. Amar Avasi.
It also doesn't say that he has to give on his own as one of the people living in the city. Right?
To give, The
guy's collecting around, going around to all the houses.
Correct.
He could have given him on his own behalf.
Okay. Amar Avasi said, L'oilam al yimna adam atzmai, a person should never hold himself back from miloses, from giving tzedakah, shlishis hashekel b'shana, a third of a shekel, at least for the year. Shlishis hashekel doesn't say here the exact amount, but this goes by the weight of silver. We're talking here about how much you evaluate this by the weight of. It's a certain weight of silver that a person should give, at least this amount per year. Shenema, the pasuk says this by hektish vehamadnu aleinu mitzvahs. We establish upon ourselves to do these mitzvahs, lases, aleinu, shlishis hashekel b'shana, lavedes beis halakena, to give a third of a shekel for the work that's needed in the Beis HaMikdash. So if this is what has to be given for the Beis HaMikdash, so definitely, Kol Sheken places here says, and definitely for tzedakah you should give at least this amount. Ravasi also says, Shgula, tzedakah, keneged kol mitzvahs. From this passage we learn out that tzedakah is as great as all mitzvahs. Shenema, because when it talks here about the mitzvah of giving tzedakah, it says va'amadna aleinu mitzvahs, and that we establish upon ourselves to do mitzvah is plural term. Mitzvah enksiv kan, it doesn't use the singular term of mitzvah, ela mitzvahs. So you see that tzedakah is like doing all mitzvahs. Siman, the Gemara gives a siman for what's coming here about the greatness of tzedakah. Gadol, Mikdash, and Moshe. Amar Rabbi Lazar said about the greatness of tzedakah, Gadol ha-me'aseh, Yosem and Oiseh. The one that's ma'aseh, and that's the Gabbai tzedakah that goes through all the work to go and collect the money of tzedakah for what's needed. So that ma'aseh that brings others to give tzedakah, that's greater than the one that just give themselves. Shenema, as the pasuk says, V'hoya ma'isa tzedakah shalom. The one that does the ma'isa of tzedakah, which refers to, as the Gemara just said, me'aseh, when you are collecting, you're bringing others to give, so your reward will be peace. And the work of tzedakah will be hashket v'vetach ad olam. So the first part of the pasuk, where it says shalom. Shalom is the greatest bracha. So the one that does the ma'isa tzedakah, that he's collecting from others, he gets the greatest bracha of shalom. Now zacha, if this person merits, so then it will be fulfilled by him, haliprois l'rav lachmecha, that he'll be able to give for poor people tzedakah, he'll be able to give them bread. Loi zacha, if the person doesn't merit, then what will happen is v'aniyim merudim tovi bois, that there'll be very poor individuals that will come into your house. And what Rashi says, what this means is the aniyim merudim does not refer to poor people, but it actually refers to the government officials that will come knocking on the door, collecting taxes from you. And they're called aniyim merudim because the government is always there knocking on your door, trying to take taxes from you, like poor people. Rav said to the people of a city, to the people of Mechuzeh, I beg you, do tzedakah for one another, in order that you should have peace with the government. If you give properly tzedakah, then you won't have the government on your back coming and taking money from you. Rabbi Lazar said, when the Beis Hamikdash is standing, a person gave the machtas hashekel for the year, and he's atoned by that. He participated, and now all the karbanis that are brought every day, the carbon tamid, is all from his funds that he participated with all Yidden. Now the Beis Hamikdash is not standing. If a person gives tzedakah, then it's good, he's atoned for. And if not, what happens is, then you'll have instead Goyim, the government, that will come and grab money away from you for taxes. And even when that happens, it'll be considered tzedakah even when you're paying the taxes. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, when the money is being taken, collected from you, it's still a tzedakah. Some of Farshim say the reason is because when you pay the taxes, so then the rich people end up paying the taxes even for the poor people. And so you're giving tzedakah by paying their taxes. But now you're doing it by force, not will. So he's telling them, do it with your own goodwill and give tzedakah to others, so you won't have to instead give this money to the government. Omar Rav said, Hi Milsa, the following point, Ishtoili, it was told to me by Ule Mishagish or Chosei de Ime, by a child that made his mother do something that was abnormal. This is actually, as according to Rashi's understanding, this is Rav Sheshes. And the Gemara is soon going to tell us the story of what happened with Rav Sheshes, that he made his mother do something extremely abnormal. And the Gemara here, for some reason, is naming Rav Sheshes with this name, that he caused his mother to do this. So what did Rav Sheshes say? He said Mishmei de Rabbi Lazar, the name of Rabbi Lazar. So this is about the greatness of tzedakah. What's the meaning of the pasuk that it says? Vayilbash tzedakah kashiryan, that you are dressed with tzedakah like armor. What this is coming to say is as follows: Ma shiryan zeh, just like this armor, kol klippa o klippa. The armor is made layers upon layers. It's not like a regular garment, which is just one garment, but it's the metal armor. It's made one layer on top of the other, and there's sort of holes in it, and then you cover it with one layer, another layer. So it's just like it is with the armor. And kol klippa mitztarefes l'shiryan gadol. It combines to be this big armor. Av tzedakah, so too when you give tzedakah, kol pruta mitztarefes l'cheshbon gadol. Every pruta you give for tzedakah combines to a great cheshbon of the tzedakah that you give. Alter Rebbe brings this in Egeres HaKodesh and Tanya, and Alter Rebbe there explains that this is referring to the revelation of Oirein Seif, of Seif Kalam, that comes in through tzedakah, and the person is not 100% hakeli for this Oir of Seif Kalam, and there are holes in each one of in the klippah and the layers. Alter Rebbe there explains that this shows on the great schar, the great revelation that comes about through tzedakah. Rab Chanina said, Mehacha. We could learn this idea from a different pasuk. Ukebeged idim kol tzidkesenu. The Eden then they looked down at tzedakah and they said that tzedakah is like a filthy garment. But the thing is though, it compares it tzedakah to a garment. Ma beged zeh, just like every garment, not even armor, any garment. Kol nima unima mitztarefes lebeged gadol. How do you weave a garment? You take one thread at a time, and together you create a beautiful garment. Av tzedakah kol prute uprute mitztarefes lecheshbon gadol. Every prute you give combines to a big number. So a person should never say, "Oh, he's giving just 1 penny to tzedakah, whatever it is, a small amount." It all combines together to cheshbon gadol. Okay, now here the Gemara brings a story regarding this name that we gave for Rav Sheshes. Amai karile ule mishagish or chassid ime. Why do we refer to Rav Sheshes as the child that made his mother do something abnormal? So the story was as follows: the boy minei Rav Achda boy Barami mit Rav Sheshes. Rav Achda boy Barami asked the following shaila by Rav Sheshes. Minayin, from where do I know? L'mitzayda b'mei sifuroi, a mitzayda in the days when he's counting to become clean. So there's the time when the mitzayda is out of the machna, when he's confirmed as being tummy. And now here we're talking about the mitzayda after his nega is healing, and now he has to bring karbanis, but then he counts 7 days in order to be able to bring the karbanis to be clean. So how do I know that in those days when he's counting, shemitame adam, that if he touches another person, he'll be mitame that person? So Rav Sheshes answered that since the pasuk clearly says that his garments become impure, it says there that at the end of 7 days after he counts, that he has to wash his clothing. So metama adam, if the garments that he wears becomes tameh, so from that it's understood that if he touches another person, he's metame. That was Rav Sheshes' answer. Amalei, so Rav Achdabai asks him, no, how could you compare? Maybe the reason why his clothing becomes tameh, that's because it's totally connected to him. Meaning, the clothing that a person wears is like part of the person himself. You're wearing it mamash on your body. But who says that if you touch another person in this time period, that he becomes tameh? And Rav Achdabai brought him a proof of this. A person that moves from a dead carcass, from an animal. And at that time, if he moves it, so he's wearing clothing, so his clothing become tummy. But then at that time, he's not going to be metame another person. So we see that the clothing that you wear, it's quicker to say that the pasuk says that becomes tummy, even if you're not metame another person. Amalei, so Rav Sheshes says, I'll bring you a different source. Ve'elo sheretz, the metame adam minolan. The fact that a person that touches a sheretz, and then he's mitama a person. From where do you know this? It doesn't say it clearly in the pasuk. Lav mishum to mitama begadim. Don't you say that you compare it to the fact that if you touch a sheretz, your clothing becomes tameh. So too, if you touch a person, you become tameh. So here we see that these two are compared. Amalei. So again, Rav Achdabai refutes Rav Sheshes' source, and he tells him, no, you can't learn from there. Sheretz behed yiksiv. By a sheretz, the Torah clearly says, Oy ish ashiyiga b'chol sheretz. If you touch the sheretz and then you metama a person. So the pasuk clearly says this. Ish. Ella, so Rav Sheshes tried to bring a third source, the shaila that was asked from him. Ella shichva zera, the metama adam yinalan. How do I know that if you touch shichva zera, the semen, that if you touch a person, he becomes tameh? So Rav Sheshes said, can't you say the reason is mishum dehoyel metama begadim metama adam, that because the shichva zera then is metama the person's clothing, and we compare and say that similar you metama another person. So therefore we can say the same thing. Again, we're looking for a source for by a mitzayda. In the days when he counts to become clean, that he's mitama begadim, so he's mitama another person as well. Amalei, again, Rav Achdabai said you can't learn from there, because shichva zera nami behed yiksivbe, the fact that it's mitama not only his clothing, but even to be mitama another person, there it says clearly, oy ish, it says the extra word of oy, l'rabba is a sanigeya. So this comes to add that if you touch another person, you're mitama him. So Rav Sheshes could not bring any source to the shaila that Rav Achdabai asked him. Ahadele bibdichusa. When Rav Achdabai was refuting all the sources that Rav Sheshes tried to bring, so he said it like with a smile, sort of mocking the fact that Rav Sheshes couldn't find the proper source. Chalash daite de Rav Sheshes. So Rav Sheshes felt very bad about this, the way he answered him with this smirk sort of, and ishtik Rav Achdabai bar Ami. What happened is, as a result, Rav Achdabai bar Ami became mute, he couldn't talk, and he forgot everything that he learned. So now after this happened, Asya Ime, his mother came, and according to Rashi's Pshat, Rav Sheshes, his mother came. She was crying in front of Rav Sheshes. Look, as a result of you feeling bad, of how Rav Achterboy smirked at you, now look what happened to him. So she was crying and begging him that he should daven to heal Rav Achterboy. Tzavcha, his mother was crying and screaming to Rav Sheshes, and he didn't pay attention to her. So it's interesting. It was Rav Sheshes' mother that was crying that he should heal Rav Achterboy. Apparently, she didn't want. I think the Mefarshim say she didn't want that it should be on her son's name that her son Rav Sheshes caused such a terrible thing to Rav Achterboy. So finally, she saw that her son is not listening to him. So here she did something that's abnormal. She exposed herself and she said to her son, look over here at my breasts, look at from where you nursed from. And therefore, so she says, because of that, because of me, you should daven for Rav Achterboy. And now he davened for Rav Achterboy and he got healed. Okay, that was the story that he caused his mother to behave abnormally for the sake of to heal another Yid, and therefore he got this nickname mentioned before, Ule Meshagish or Chesed Ime. Okay, now what does that mean? A child that behaved in a way that he caused his mother to do something abnormal. Now, Dasan Allah, since we brought the Shaila mentioned before regarding the Mitzayra, how do you know Mitzayra in the days that he counts to become clean, that he's Mitama another person? So Minalam, what's Taka the source for that? Says the Gemara, Kedetanya, as we learned in the Braisa, Rav Shimon ben Yechi Yaime. Nemar kibus begodim b'meisi purai. The pasuk clearly says that in those days that your clothing become tamei. You have to tevel it after 7 days. And v'nema kibus begodim b'mei chalutai. It says also when the mitzayre is chaluk, meaning he's confirmed that he's tamei, he's out of the machne. At that time, it also says that his clothing become tamei. Mala Allah mitame b'adam. Just like over there, when he's out of the machne, so he's mitama another person. Afkan mitama adam. We compare and say, so too here, you mitama another person in this time period. Okay, the Gemara goes back to tzedakah. Amar Rabbi Lazar said, Gadol ha'iseh tzedakah b'seiseh. It's much greater. A person that does tzedakah quietly, discreetly. Yoseh mi Moshe Rabbeinu. Even greater than the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. The Eel of Moshe Rabbeinu ksiv, Moshe Rabbeinu, the pasuk says, Ki yagarti mipnei ha'afa chema. I'm afraid from Hashem's anger. Rashi says, Af and chema refers to legionis, legions of malachim that can come and punish. V'ilu ba'iseh tzedakah ksiv, but a person that gives tzedakah, and we're talking a person that gives tzedakah discreetly, matan b'seiser, when you give discreetly, yichbe af. This will subdue this anger. And then the pasuk says, "V'sheichad b'cheik chema aza." That if you give tzedakah into the lap of the poor person, so even the very harsh anger of Hashem, these legions of malachim that can harm you, will also be removed. That was the pshat that Rabbi Lazar said. But a pliga de Rabbi Yitzchak, the pshat of this pasuk, the way he said it, argues the way Rabbi Yitzchak understood it. Rabbi Yitzchak said, "Af kaife," but af. This level of anger that it will subdue, but chema eina kaife. It will not subdue the chema. Shanamba, because he says in the end of the pasuk it says v'sheichad b'cheik chema aza, which means afal pisha sheichad b'cheik. Even if there is this sheichad, which refers to tzedakah that you give in the lap of a poor individual, but chema aza, the strong chema will still remain. Ikadamri, others said, how did Rabbi Yitzchak darshan this pasuk? Omer Rabbi Yitzchak, this refers actually to a person that takes bribery. Kol dayan, shanetel sheichad, any judge that takes bribery, maybe chema azala olam. He brings a tremendous, powerful anger into the world. Shanema, as we learn from this pasuk, v'sheichad b'cheik, chema azah, there's tremendous anger in the world. Rabbi Yitzchak said about tzedakah, kol anoisim pruta la'ani, a person that gives money, tzedakah, to a poor individual, mizbarech b'sheish brachas. So he gets benched with 6 brachas. V'ha'mefaisai b'dvarim, and then if in addition to giving him, you also appease him, you speak to him, you comfort him, then mizbarech b'yir aleph brachas. You get even more, you get 11 brachas. Where do we see this? Hanais and prutalani mizbarech b'sheish brachas. You give tzedakah, you get blessed with 6 brachas. The pasuk says, we quoted before, halei price. You give bread to the poor person, and vaniyim merudim tavi bayis, and you bring very poor people into your house. V'gaima, the Gemara does not bring the continuation of the pasuk, but the Bachya brings, the pasuk there says 6 different brachas. So the Bachya quotes here, Oz yibaka kashacha erecha, v'arochascha meira titzmach, v'halach l'fanecha tzidkecha, kveid Hashem yaspecha, and then it says Oz tikre v'Hashem yana, Hashem Yana v'yom hineni. Teshua v'yom hineni. So the pasuk there mentions 6 different things as a reward for this that you are giving tzedakah. Now, where do you see a person that appeases and he talks b'dvarim, with words to comfort the poor person? Mizbarech ba'achas esrei. So here you're doing the mitzvah b'simcha, and you're doing the mitzvah. Mefarshim say that the difference is one is giving from your money, that's at tzedakah b'mamayin, and the other is b'guf, that's with your own. You're talking to him and you're comforting him. So here ba'achas esrei brachas, you get 11 different brachas. Shanema, the pasuk says, v'tofik l'rov nafshecha, v'nefesh nana tasbiyah, and this nefesh that's very pain, so tasbiyah, you satisfy him, meaning that you talk to him and you comfort him. So here the pasuk goes on to say 11 different brachas. Again, the Gemara doesn't quote the entire thing. The pasuk there says, v'zarach b'choshech hayrecha, v'afeloscha katzarayim, v'nochacha Hashem tomet, v'izbiyah b'tzachtzachas nafshecha, v'gaymer, and then ubanam mimcha char v'seilam. And then, so if you look there in the pasuk, it counts 11 different things that Hashem will give you for not just giving the tzedakah, but as the pasuk there says, the nefesh nana tasbiyah, that you talk to the person and you also comfort him. Rabbi Yitzchak also said about tzedakah, what's the meaning of the pasuk where it says, Reidev tzedakah v'chesed? A person that runs after doing tzedakah and chesed, yimtza chayim tzedakah v'kavod. So he'll find life and tzedakah and honor. So the question is, we understand that he'll find life and honor. But what does it mean that if you give tzedakah, you'll also find tzedakah? What does that mean? You'll also need tzedakah. So mishum de'reidev tzedakah yimtza tzedakah. If you're running after giving tzedakah, you'll also have to rely on tzedakah. So the pshat is, no. It comes to tell you, kol ha'reidev achat tzedakah. If you run after giving tzedakah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mamtzi loy mois v'yiseh ben tzedakah. So the Eibusher will give you more money, that you'll have more opportunity to give even more tzedakah. Rav Nachman ben Yitzchak says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mamtzi loy b'nei adam amuhu ganim. The Eibusher will give you the opportunity to have proper people to give tzedakah to. Last is ben tzedakah, to give them tzedakah kedei lekabel alein schadai, in order to get the right reward for this. If you give tzedakah to people that it's not appropriate to give them tzedakah, so then it's a mistake and you don't end up getting reward for this. So the Eibusher will give you the opportunity to give tzedakah properly. What does this come to exclude? This is different than what Rabbi darshan. The Darish Rabbi said, what's the meaning of the pasuk? That Yirmiyah says that they should be stumbling in front of you in the time of your anger. What does this mean? Asay behem. This is what you should do for them. Master of the universe, even if the Yidden that are sinning, but it's a time when they want to subdue the Yetzer Hara and give tzedakah, cause them to stumble to give tzedakah to people that are not supposed to receive the tzedakah, in order that they should not receive the reward. That's what the Gemara was saying before, that a person that gives tzedakah, in the times when he's supposed to give tzedakah, the Eibusher will give him the opportunity to be able to give even more tzedakah, he'll have more money, and he'll be able to give tzedakah to the people that deserve the tzedakah to get schar for this.